Alright, back to talking about Young Guns 2. Alright, so at the end of the last video, I was talking about how the Billy and the gang were tumbling down a steep edge, like a drop off, with their horses. So I guess now would be a good time to talk about horses. Because it looked... The horses were tumbling down. They fell down. Uh, so you'd kind of assume that most people would be like, "Wow, are the horses okay? Did they get hurt during this part of the movie? Because they were like falling over um, during they going when they're going over this drop off." At least that's what I was thinking. I would think a lot of people would be like, "Are the horses okay? Did they get hurt?" So, kind of hard to do a western without horses. So it might be fun to watch westerns, but you should at least be wanting or expecting that the horses in the movie are not harmed at all. So I don't know how often that's happened in movies. You always have the at the end of movies where they say no animals were harmed in the making of this picture. So I don't know when they started putting that at the end of movies, but probably when movies first started being made, people didn't really care about hurting the animals. They just wanted to make money. And I remember hearing something specifically about westerns a long time ago. I don't know if this is true or not, but how oftentimes in westerns, uh, horses would fall to the ground. Uh, I guess because it's exciting to see a horse fall to the ground. I don't know why we have to see that, but in those moments in westerns, I was told a long time ago that the way that they were getting the horse to fall down like that was because they had a tripwire. So they were tripping the horses. That's why they were falling down, because why else would a horse fall down like that? So I would imagine that when you're tripping a horse like that, they're going to get hurt. So that's upsetting to think about. So I don't know how they're training these horses to fall down like that. I don't know about that procedure. But it's a conflicting thing for me because I don't want animals to get hurt, but I like watching the Western movies, because it's like an interesting part of history, and it's like that's what they were doing back then. They were riding around on horses because they didn't have cars to drive, so that's how a lot of people got around, like in old west times and even like other times in history before cars were invented. That's how a lot of people got around. So it's historically accurate, that part of it. And well, it's these people that were riding around on horses, uh, how well were they treating these horses? I suppose it's some people were mean to the horses, and some people were very nice to their horses when they were riding around. Well, it's funny to complete that sentence when they were riding around on them, because if you think about it, if you use your empathy in this situation with riding around on horses, you think to yourself, would I want to be ridden? Would I want someone riding around on my back like that? Would I be okay with that? Probably not. Uh, we're not built the same way as horses. They have stronger backs. They have big muscle in their shoulder and leg and back area. But I don't know what it is. We can't since we can't talk to the horse. We can't say, how is it for you when people ride you? Are you okay with that? Does that hurt you, horse? So we can't do that. We can't talk to them, so we don't know. Makes you wonder. I would think that if it were up to the horse would prefer not to have someone riding around on them. I just assume that. Riding a horse can be very dangerous. Like with what happened to Christopher Reeve, Reeves or Reeve, the man who played Superman back in the 80s. That was sad, shocking. Uh, I don't have much experience riding horses. I have only been on a horse once in my whole life. It was when I was really young, little kid. My uncle had a horse, and someone put me on the horse, and I think that was it. I don't think I stayed on the horse for very long. I was just up there for like it does. It's a very vague, brief memory, so I must not have been on the horse for very long. Maybe, maybe we moved around a little bit. I just don't remember it very well because I was very young. So that was the only time I was ever on a horse. Okay, just interesting to think about since you can't communicate with a horse verbally. Okay, so then on their way to Mexico, um, Pat shoots and kills Tom O'Folliard. Tom is in shock, and he's saying, "You really shot me." And he's looking at the blood from his bullet wound. And then Poe tells him, "Take your medicine, son." And then later Chavez is singing sadly. Billy is going through Tom's things. He finds a book about Billy the Kid, and then drops it to the ground. And then Billy finds what looks like a jar of marbles. And then I was thinking, well, I guess it could be gumballs, but it looked like I don't know when gumballs were invented. I suppose there might have been gumballs back then. I'm not sure, but it was either gumballs or marbles. They were round. spherical objects, and they were colored. So probably marbles. I don't know when marbles were invented either. So Billy takes this jar and then he smashes it against a rock. Um, Chavez takes some of his hair and cuts it, which I think I've heard that's a ritual of mourning, cutting hair. Okay. And then the gang hide out at a place called, I think I have the name right here, um, Stinking Springs. So it's like a fort, like a building that they're in, the gang. Okay. Um, so then Doc tells Billy, "You rode a 15-year-old boy straight into his grave, and the rest of us straight to hell. Straight to hell." Then Doc aims a rifle at Billy and says, "William H. Bonney, you are not a god." Then Billy tells Doc, "Why don't you pull the trigger and find out?" Doc puts down the rifle, saying, "I gotta get back home." Doc steps out the doorway, and Poe shoots Doc. And Billy pulls Doc back in the building. Pat, Poe, and the other men have the place surrounded and start firing. Billy tells Dave, "It's your gang. You lead us out. Come on." Dave tells Billy, "It ain't my gang, it's your gang. It's always been your gang." Billy points his gun at Dave and says, "Don't cross me, Dave." Chavez helps Doc up. Doc yells, "Billy!" Doc has blood coming out of his mouth and his chest wound. Doc tells Billy, "Let's finish the game." Billy gives Doc a gun. Doc goes out in the doorway, yelling and shooting. They kill Doc, Pat, Poe, and the other men. But everybody but Billy was able to escape behind Doc when he falls down dead. Okay, so at this moment, this is where there's some historical inconsistency with the movie, because uh, I read in a book a long time ago, and then also I think it said in the special feature for the first Young Guns movie, it confirmed this. It's the documentary about the real Billy the Kid, where it retells this event at Stinking Springs. Um, so a little historical contradiction, inaccuracy here. What actually happened during this part of the movie. Also, it's a contradiction for the previous Young Guns movie, but the person the who gets shot and killed during this part in history was not Doc Scurlock, but Charlie Bowdry. Charlie Bowdry, who actually got killed in the first Young Guns movie at the when the regulators were escaping the fire at McSween's house. So that's a little different from what actually happened in history.